I'd like to have your attention brought to the immigration problems that are surely facing the European continent with the aggressive acts of Vladimir Putin from Moscow against poor people, people who are struggling, and mostly Muslims. In Europe, I hope they don't adopt or adhere to the Trump policies of building walls to keep mothers, sons, daughters, and fathers out of the safety of a newfound land, with a government that stands strong in its convictions like the Royal Army in England, who did so back in the late 1930s and struggled as the German Third Reich built a war machine that was comparable to no other army before it. And luckily, we made sanctions against them that they were never allowed to build another military again. But we were allies with Stalin at the time. And Stalin really betrayed by Hitler in what they called Blitzkrieg in Warsaw, Poland, when they were to divvy up Poland underneath the old maps created back in earlier times. But once they got to Moscow, the Third Reich destroyed the Soviet Union and went on in to fight the Russians, hoping for a two-front war so they could separate the Russian military and destroy them, but they were faced with a multi-front war themselves, thanks to some ingenuity by people like Dwight Eisenhower, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Harry Truman, General MacArthur, and the greatest war general of all time, General Patton. Those times could have been avoided, probably, by conversations, by new policies to make the economy stable in Germany, to help from afar. If someone would have took the time to locate funds, figure out a better way, a humanitarian way, the way of the Messiah. If you look at my Mothers of Mercy 3.2 Act, it's an estimated account of the money that sits in places like the Vatican, in churches throughout the world, which have become conglomerate churches, like a Burger King, spread throughout the land. Crossroads is building a new church at the Dayton Mall to appeal to the traffic, no doubt. Will they home our homeless? Will they offer food to our neglected children who are poor and can't seem to find their way out of that status? These are questions I have. Will the doors be open for 24 hours of service like they should be, so that a man can walk in from the 30 below temperatures in Buffalo, New York, and find a place for water, sanitary, and healing from his bloody feet, from walking, trying to find some kind of solace in this world, all alone? If not, can we buy him some liquor so that he can forget his stresses and pains for a little while? You have to wonder about these things. I think that there should be more of an effort when we look at people who make billions of dollars over 72 hours like Benny Hinn, who owns the mountaintop with a fleet of Mercedes-Benz limousines. How much money do you need for spreading the word of God? Some say in the Bible they ask for 10% of your overall wages. If the average age or average wage is $50,000 a year, that's $5,000 a year per worker in the United States of America that are going to church. Politicians don't want to address this because they're afraid of the vote. Well, only a third of the United States of America goes to church these days. And people like Benny Hinn are probably why. We take a look here locally at the Harvest Church, another conglomerate, Lifehouse Church, Crossroads Church. Look at the monies that they're investing in land deals, like at the Dayton Mall and the old Sears buildings. Prime real estate. Why would you do that? So that you can make more money. So that you get a bigger return on your investment by advertising. Yet, I haven't seen any advertising from my campaign, U.S. for Hope, locally, where we recognize citizens who stand upright and take the lead, like Winston Churchill did. We name our stadiums after people who exhibited great citizenship, like Ben Franklin. We try to exonerate people from not understanding who we are as a society by saying, this is Paul Brown's stadium, a man who was so innovative that he helped to teach football, not only in Cleveland, Ohio, but in San Francisco, where Bill Walsh, an understudy, took over and did amazing things with people like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Dwight Clark. Instead of saying, this is where you buy your energy. This is craft, so buy our products. And programming our children to not think anymore, but to react with impulses from visual stimulations that they see, or things that they're told by famous actors. Instead of being innovative and thinking on their own, we're programming them with video games. All the while, we see people in Yugoslavia and other European countries in the not-so-sovereign blocs of the old Soviet Union being killed by Vladimir Putin. What are we doing as a Christian society? How about our Muslims? Are we trying to help them? I challenge every single parishioner of a church to go to church on Sunday and demand to adopt a refugee. As a church, we want the next illegal immigrant in the United States. Because as a church, we're going to teach him how to gain citizenship, or her and their family. And then to pay us back, they will work and go to church here and teach another. And it will spread until the whole world sees what the church is. It's the home of a message saying, love people, don't crucify them. You'll get a lot further with Mary Magdalene if you don't throw rocks at her. Treat her like an animal. Just look at her and love her in your eyes until she knows it's okay to approach you, that you're not as they say you are. You're a person who loves, that's been lied about, treaded upon. And you might find out that a lot of your preconceived notions about certain behaviors aren't constituted. And they won't have to scream so loud. Accept me. Accept me. And everything will settle down. And people will grow from knowing other people. People who are different. People like the settlers who came here on the ships, met on the coast by indigenous people who said, would you like to have Thanksgiving dinner with us? We would like to know more about you. To the starving colonialist who showed up here with smallpox, bayonets, and a parliament-style government that began to tax those Indians for their efforts to farm their own land. And when they wouldn't pay the taxes, were slaughtered, moved from reservation to reservation, not allowed to farm anymore, taking away little pieces of our Native Americans. Until finally, Jack Kent Cooke had to remove his name from his football team because they were mad. I don't blame them. It's disgusting. We overlook it. We don't teach it correctly in history classes. But what happens in European mindsets becomes this ego-driven hate and disdain for other people. And in Germany, it surfaced in the blue-eyed, blonde-headed Aryan. Who did they choose as a leader? A putz named Adolf Hitler, who they were going to kill once they figured out how to get the SS to fall into line to the Nazis. You know, the young, aggravated, and ignorant. We call them soldiers. 20 to 30-somethings who know it all, who we can program easily through Guantanamo Bay type efforts. We have to quit trusting governments. They work for us. They do not support us. They are a mechanism with many tools. Print up the plan or the contact information for people who struggle. Let them know where to find these churches with the 24 hours and the food, the pantries, the homeless shelters, the transportation, the education. And if you have to, you can put down your product that you sell somewhere on it. Maybe on two sides of a 12-pack of pop. One side for homeless shelters, one side for churches with food 24 hours a day. Instead of the common ink blots. I believe this will work. I believe a great platform for it is the Paris Olympics. Because I have a letter from a soldier, family member of mine actually, celebrating my mother and her first birthday, and letting us know what it's like when we have to go clean up other people's messes. Should have been taken care of in-house, but we neglected it too long because of the price of oil, and then had to end it with fire.